Why Leonardo DiCaprio rarely does interviews anymore. Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the most famous actors in the world. Yet there is something unusual about the way he handles fame today. Despite decades of success, you almost never see him doing interviews. No long talk show appearances, no viral podcast conversations, and very few moments where he talks openly about his personal life. That silence immediately raises a question. Why would someone this famous choose to speak so little? This wasn't always the case. Early in his career, Leonardo DiCaprio was everywhere. He appeared on television, magazine covers, and press tours around the world. After Titanic, his face was unavoidable. Interviews were frequent. Questions followed him everywhere. At that stage, talking to the media was part of the job. But as his career evolved, his relationship with interviews began to change. Slowly, his public appearances became less frequent, his interviews became shorter, and personal topics started to disappear almost entirely. Today, when Leonardo DiCaprio does speak publicly, the pattern is clear. He talks about the film. He talks about the director. He talks about the message of the project, and then he stops. Very little is shared beyond that. This shift was not sudden, and it was not accidental. Many actors eventually reach a point where constant exposure stops helping and starts hurting. When audiences see too much of someone, familiarity replaces curiosity. And curiosity is one of the most powerful tools in entertainment. Leonardo DiCaprio built his career on transformation. Each role feels separate. Each character feels distinct. If the audience becomes too familiar with the person behind the roles, that illusion becomes harder to maintain. By limiting interviews, he protects that separation. He allows viewers to see characters, not headlines. There is also the issue of control. Interviews are unpredictable. Single sentence can be taken out of context. A casual remark can become a viral headline. In today's media environment, that risk is even greater. Short clips travel faster than full conversations. Meaning can disappear in seconds. By speaking less, Leonardo DiCaprio reduces the chances of distraction. When he does appear publicly, it is almost always for a specific reason. A film premiere, a major festival, or a carefully planned press moment tied directly to a project. These appearances are brief, focused, and intentional. They are not casual. And because they are rare, they receive more attention. Scarcity creates value. When people do not hear from someone often, they listen more closely when they do. Another important factor is timing. Leonardo DiCaprio became famous long before social media defined celebrity culture. He never needed constant online visibility to stay relevant. Unlike many modern celebrities, his career does not depend on daily engagement. There is no pressure to post updates or explain himself online. His work keeps him in the spotlight. And that absence creates something powerful. Curiosity. When Leonardo DiCaprio appears, people notice. Media outlets treat his interviews as events rather than routine content. Silence becomes part of the image, and that image has helped shape how the public sees him today. And as your career becomes more stable, you gain the ability to say no. Leonardo DiCaprio has earned that ability. He can choose fewer appearances without losing attention. In fact, sometimes fewer appearances create even more attention. Because people start asking questions like, why isn't he doing interviews? Why don't we hear from him more? Is he avoiding the spotlight? And those questions create their own headlines. His silence becomes content. That sounds strange, but it's true. In the modern media world, absence can be a signal. It can imply confidence. It can imply focus. It can imply that you don't need to chase approval, and audiences respond to that. They see it as a form of authenticity. Not the performative kind, but the quiet kind. There's one more effect that makes this strategy powerful. Anticipation. If an actor is constantly visible, a new film announcement doesn't feel special. But when an actor is rarely seen, everything feels bigger. A premiere appearance becomes a moment. A red carpet clip becomes a trending topic. A short interview becomes something people share. It creates the feeling that something is happening, even if the actor is simply showing up like anyone else. This is why, when Leonardo DiCaprio does speak, people listen closely. Even if he's just describing a scene or praising a director, it feels like you're hearing from someone rare. And that rarity keeps audiences invested. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean every celebrity should copy this approach. Some careers are built through constant visibility. Some industries reward frequent communication. But for Leonardo DiCaprio's type of career, big films, serious performances, long-term reputation, this approach makes sense. It protects his focus, it protects his privacy, and it protects the way audiences experience his work. And here's the most interesting part. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, doing less can be the loudest move. It's counterintuitive, but it works because audiences don't just follow content, they follow moments. And by limiting interviews, Leonardo DiCaprio turns every appearance into a moment. So, when you ask, why does he rarely do interviews anymore? The answer isn't one single reason. It's a combination of strategy, control, privacy, and how fame works in the modern age. He's protecting the mystery. He's reducing risk. He's keeping attention on the craft. And he's choosing scarcity over saturation. Because sometimes, the less you say, the more people want to hear. Before we finish, there's one more reason this works so well, and it's the part most people miss. Leonardo DiCaprio's silence isn't just doing fewer interviews. It's a strategy that changes how people feel about him. Because in entertainment, attention isn't only about showing up. It's about controlling the timing of when you show up. Think about what happens when a celebrity is everywhere. They're on talk shows. They're doing podcasts. They're posting every day. They're reacting to every headline at first. That creates momentum. But after a while, the audience starts to feel saturated. The mystery disappears. Surprise disappears. And even big news starts to feel normal. That is the exact opposite of what you want when your career depends on people being excited to watch you on screen. Leonardo DiCaprio became famous in a different era. He built his image before social media decided what a celebrity should do. He never had to train audiences to expect daily updates from him, so he doesn't need to keep feeding the cycle. Instead, he uses a different formula. He appears rarely, he speaks briefly, and he keeps the focus on the work. That creates a feeling that each appearance matters. When you don't hear from someone often, you pay attention when you do. It's like a limited release product. The less available it is, the more valuable it feels. And this effect shows up in the way media outlets treat him. When Leonardo DiCaprio speaks, headlines form instantly. A short comment becomes a quote. A small clip becomes a news story. Not because he said something shocking, but because he said something at all. That's the power of scarcity. It creates demand without forcing yet another reason. He limits interviews is that interviews can create identity problems for actors. When people hear someone's personality too often, the actor becomes that person, not a character. You start watching a movie and thinking, that's the celebrity talking, instead of, that's the character living. For an actor like Leonardo DiCaprio, that would be dangerous. His career is built on playing roles that feel real and separate. A corrupt stockbroker, a survivalist, a detective, a historical figure. The more you associate him with a familiar public persona, the harder it is to forget him inside a performance. So when he limits interviews, he protects the illusion. He stays, just distant enough that the character can fully take over. This is also why his interviews, when they happen, feel controlled. He tends to keep the conversation on the film. The director, the production, the message, he avoids turning interviews into personal confessionals. That doesn't mean he never shares anything. It means he shares only what supports the project. That's a major difference. Because many celebrities do interviews to build their personal brand. Leonardo DiCaprio does interviews to support the film. And then he steps back. There's also a practical reason that doesn't get talked about enough. Press tours are exhausting. Doing interview after interview is repetitive. You answer the same questions in different ways. You stay on all day. You smile. You react. You perform a version of yourself. Some actors enjoy that. Some don't.